Donald Trump has put out a hit list because he says that Democrats are causing bloodshed when it comes to ICE. I've got that coming up for you. And Stephen Miller may have been the cause of a liberal judge whose house went up in flames. This is just a continuation of what we've seen already, which is that this administration is hell-bent on creating chaos and creating enemies from within in order to achieve power. Benny Johnson here is showing exactly what this is about. Benny Johnson, if you don't know, we've featured him a couple weeks ago on the channel. He is allegedly gay YouTuber. And here he is. He was in Chicago this past weekend in order to show what ICE is doing. And here's what I cannot believe he posted this. But before we get to that, if you could please hit like on this video and subscribe, more people will see it and it would mean so much. Thanks. Let's get to this.
Surrender that gigantic pie. To the free, my rascally restaurateurs!
So Benny Johnson posted a video of him hurting innocent people, like beating migrants. This is what he thinks is acceptable. I mean, we are so beyond anything reasonable now, because I do think if someone would have posted this even 4 years ago, this person would have been rightfully taken out of polite society. But now it's just another day where someone can post pictures of them, images of them beating immigrants. And it's just another day. Well, not here. We're going to focus on it. Now, I have to say, I kind of wanted to wait to see what was happening. We don't still know everything, but there is a judge in South Carolina, Dianne Goodstein, whose house went in flames. She's been accused of being a far left Democratic judge. She's been accused of shielding left-wing terrorism. And here's what happened to her home. And then I have some follow-up on this, what happened, and also how Stephen Miller is all connected.
You can hear this thing burning.
Now, we don't know yet why this happened. We don't know, okay? We do know if this is a right-wing judge who had been put in by Trump and their house was aflame. Do you think Stephen Miller would have said, well, we got to wait to see what happens? Of course not. Stephen Miller would say, oh, this is very obviously left-wing terrorism. Now, I'm not going to do that. We don't know why this happened yet. I will tell you that I've heard reporting. Chris Mowry says that the husband of the South Carolina judge had to jump out of a window after helping others escaping a raging fire, fracturing several bones in his hips, feet, and legs. And again, he's saying he's not going to jump to any conclusions, but if the roles were reversed, MAGA would be going nuts. Here's just a little bit more of what happened. Then I have what Stephen Miller said that could have caused this. Now, this judge had multiple death threats over the years, and Goldstein was not at the home at the time of the fire. Multiple sources had confirmed multiple members of her family were present, however, including at least 3 who have been hospitalized with injuries sustained by the fire. I think it's crazy, by the way, too, that this is how things are so uneven, because if this were to have happened to someone perceived right wing, it's all any of the media would have talked about. The left-wing media would have talked about it, right-wing media would have talked about it, but because it's a perceived left-wing judge and we don't have the megaphone the way that the right does, they don't even care. They don't talk about it. They're talking about this like the shutdown. Now, here's what happened. Police in South Carolina are investigating whether a blaze that burned a liberal judge's home to the ground was set intentionally. Prior to the fire, the South Carolina Circuit Judge has been receiving death threats, like I said, after issuing an opinion in September blocking South Carolina election officials from handing over voter data to the Trump administration. The Trump administration is seeking voter registration data, which includes personal information such as social security numbers from at least 9 states in an effort to prove to their baseless allegations of voter fraud. Multiple Democratic-controlled states refused to turn over the data, saying the federal government should not be privy to that information. Following that ruling, Goldstein had been receiving death threats. Goldstein, for her part, had been walking on the beach at the time of the blaze and was unharmed, but her husband was airlifted to hospital after he sustained multiple injuries from a jumping out of a window to safety during the fire. Now, here's what Stephen Miller said yesterday. Stephen Miller said, and this is what he said when a Trump-appointed judge ruled against sending troops to Oregon. Okay? The issue before us now is very simple and clear. There's a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. It is well organized and funded, and it is shielded by left-wing Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power to dismantle terrorism and terror networks. So Stephen Miller is calling that judge and anyone who goes against the administration a terrorist. That is just so anti-American. We are allowed to, first off, checks and balances is kind of like the whole thing we do here. If a president can rule by decree, by just writing executive orders without being challenged by anyone or anything, that is no longer a democracy. That is no longer America as we know it. That is now a dictatorship, okay? Let's just put that plainly. What he's advocating for here is dictatorship. It is not an America first policy. He's really trying to change what we know America to be. Now he was asked about that judge and what's happening in Portland if they were going to charge someone with terrorism.
Do you have evidence that this campaign is coordinated? Are you planning charges on anyone who is actually coordinating said campaign?
Yes. So since the Joint Terrorism Task Force has gotten involved, we found that there are common funding, that there is common financing, that there are meeting points.
All right, there's no proof of that. I'm actually really frustrated with the way CNN phrased that question, because he is asking the question as if what Stephen Miller, a known liar, a known propagandist, someone who actively works against what we all know America to be. He's actually asking that question as if it's based in fact, which it's not. That's very upsetting. Now, here is a better version of that question where he was asked and then told that there's no evidence of anything that he's saying.
I don't know of many Democratic politicians who have endorsed these terrible incidences that you just referred to. And I also don't know of any evidence that there's some kind of vast underlying organization funding them. Is that what you're indicating is happening here?
Yes, in fact, we know that it's true. But obviously,
you think Tyler Robinson was being funded?
If it's true, then show us the proof. Show us the proof it's not true. Now, while this is all happening, Donald Trump and his White House released what I'm going to be calling a hit list, where they are saying that Democrats are fueling bloodshed against ICE. And then they literally list so many Democratic officials here because they spoke up against ICE, calling them thugs, as you see here, Gestapo, calling them dangerous and reckless. All true. But we're seeing now that political violence is ramping up. It's on both sides, meaning the victims of it are on both sides. There's only really one side perpetrating the violence, but it's affecting both sides. And instead of trying to lower the temperature, the Trump administration intends on raising it. They want to make sure as many people get as hurt as possible. Why? Because they can keep saying there's an emergency, so that if there's an emergency, they get emergency powers. And before you know it, America is not the place you and I grew up in. It's something completely different, dangerous, where we cannot speak out and we can't fight back. Oof. Well, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please hit like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.